Tell us about some of your early days of how you got started with your sourcing.
The idea of sourcing was absolutely foreign to me. I didn't know what the terms meant. I was like, what's the difference between like manufacturing, distributing, and wholesale, and like white label, and none of it made any sense. I started pretty simple on websites, like Fair and Tundra. I was starting pretty small, and I was only sourcing, about 100 to 150 units of a product at a time. I also got lucky and found a couple like Facebook groups where other boxes who were bigger than me were selling off their like excess inventory and such. And so in the beginning, it was really difficult. I remember looking at like my margins and my budget and wondering like how in the world am I going to fit, I need 5 to 6 items and my budget's X, like there's no way I can make that work. So it was hard at the beginning. I mean, if you look at my budgets from the beginning, it's in the red at the very beginning because sourcing, it was not something I was very good at. It's something that takes time. In the first couple months, I totally blew that budget out of the water. And then moving forward, it got a little bit, I understood how it worked a little bit better, and you have more buying power once you start increasing numbers. And I started learning about other resources, and yes, you can like source from overseas, or there is businesses like procurement. But in the beginning, it was a lot of trial and error. I did a lot of working with like small women-owned businesses at the time because we could help each other out. And even though like 100 to them was a lot, but compared to like a big business, like 100 is not a lot. So I kind of figured out how I could make it work. And I used like Etsy a lot and found a lot of like smaller makers who we could help each other out before I had the buying and negotiating power of, like 3, 4, 500 units.
So, Michael, you've talked to a lot of people in similar shoes. Is this a typical story? Is this what you typically see out there, how people get started?
Yeah, for sure. Like there's a lot of boxes we talk to that originally are in the red, and they're just trying to get to that volume where the numbers can make sense. And once they get there, options overseas are just ways to kind of reduce their costs to increase their margins. Gives them the flexibility to spend in other things, in marketing, in employees, other things to help grow their business. So it's kind of getting to that critical inflection point where it makes sense to do so.
Lo, I'm going to ask you, like, based on all of your experience and your growth, do you have any tips for those that are still maybe sourcing on their own and recommendations for them?
So I did do, like Michael mentioned, I did do a lot of domestic like ordering at that time because it was a lot more economical. The thing that we did that helped a lot, we were just very upfront with like what our budget was. And so we, even looking at online at prices, you can typically guess the wholesale is about 50%. If you're buying 100, 200, 300 units, a lot of these businesses are still going to be willing to give you even a bigger discount. And so I find that a lot of people sometimes are like not asking or even asking if there's a bigger discount. So usually like with my first outreach email, I'm immediately asking, I tell them what I do, I link to what I do, I like tell them about my mission and say like, this is what I'm looking at. Here's, like what kind of pricing can you offer? Do you offer bulk like discounts? And so a lot of times, like we found that they would come back. A lot of these other companies that we're reaching out to have a similar mission as us as well in empowering women. And so a lot of them would write back and be like, yeah, like we love your mission. We would love to work with you. Here's what we can offer. And even at that point, if it was still above what I could feasibly do, I would write back as well and be like, thank you so much. I'm going to be upfront though. Here's what I can do. This is the max point that I can do on this. I would love to work with you. We can feature you on our blog posts or socials, all these other things to try to make it more beneficial. Is that something you could do? And a lot of times they came back and said yes. And so I think a lot of it is not being scared to just continue to have these conversations and be like, I want this to be mutual beneficial, but also like this is my max. And if that's not doable, I understand, like you're a business as well. But if you can do it, here's how we could meet in the middle and try to make this mutually beneficial.
What a great way to look at it, and a very kind approach, right? I want to find something that works for everybody involved in this. How can we work together? Curious, like what percentage of emails would you send out there you get a response back versus no response whatsoever?
In the very beginning, actually, we very rarely did not get responses. Now that we're like bigger, we get more no responses now than we did like in the beginning. But I think just like that higher touch point and being smaller and making the emails very personal helped a lot.